In a 1787 letter, Benjamin Franklin wrote, "Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become more corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters." This aphorism has been on my mind a lot lately. As a libertarian, I would like to see government coercion play as minimal role as possible in public life, preferring to see society built on foundations like free exchange, innovation, and persuasion instead of the violent force inherent in government. So when it comes to government's attempts to manage the COVID pandemic, my impulse is to want to see the government do as little mandating as possible. I'd like to see people be allowed to make their own choices, informed by both data and a desire to do what's best for both themselves and their neighbors. The trouble is that Americans are often radical individualists, not always, mind you, but when they think it's convenient. So we live in a country where the suggestion that we should wear masks, for example, in public, in order to slow the spread of COVID, to save lives, that suggestion is treated as an egregious violation of individual freedom and is part of some convoluted conspiracy to usher in a police state. Unfortunately, mandates only worsen the backlash, because the more mandates are enforced, the more the unvirtuous will resist. The more they resist, the more the government will try to enforce these mandates, which will create even more of the unnecessary close contact that they're trying to avoid. In addition, those who resist could end up in crowded jail cells, thus exacerbating the problem even more. So there are no good solutions while we refuse to voluntarily subject ourselves to minor inconveniences for the sake of our neighbors. Thus, our corruption and viciousness opens us up to masters who want to rule us, because we cannot rule ourselves like responsible and wise adults. So as I look at so many of those around me, Franklin's words echo hauntingly. While I can understand why someone might be against, for instance, a government mandate to wear masks, well, yeah, I get it, no government mandate to wear masks. But the problem is that many aren't considerate, mature, or loving enough to their neighbors to wear them voluntarily. As the Apostle Paul said to those who argued, "I have the right to do anything I want," yes, you have the right to do all things, but not all things are beneficial. So don't become a slave to destructive self-centeredness. Well, I can also understand skepticism and pushback against left-wing calls to shut down the essentially life-sustaining economy. Regardless of what those on the left say, you can't have money without labor. That there has to be work and value behind it. So yes, the economy is important. I get why there's all this skepticism and pushback against these calls to shut down the economy. So while I get that, though, the COVID deniers are out there inventing conspiracy theories and turning their attention to fighting windmills of planned pandemics or plandemics and microchip vaccines. So I sympathize with condemnations of the nanny state. I really do. But people who aggress on their neighbor's safety and well-being with reckless abandon beg to be nannied and treated like children by daddy government. If we want to live in a free society, we should live as virtuous and mature people, ready to control our behavior so the government has no excuse to butt in and try to do it for us. Our problem is that we are not a virtuous people. Our independent streak has made us resistant to tyranny, but it's also made us contrarian and selfish.